All right, this is week 5 in Intro to Sport Management. And what we talked about last week were some different job areas in sport. A lot of us think of college sport and pro sport because they're pretty visible in our society. But I also wanted you to see opportunities in recreational sports. So things like youth sports or recreational sport facility management. For example, War Memorial Stadium is now managed by Arkansas State Parks. So that's kind of related to what we do in sport. And then my personal favorite aspect of sport, which is race promotion. So things like administering a Tough Mudder race or the Little Rock Marathon or something like that. That's becoming a fairly big and pervasive area of sport, pretty popular. So we looked at some realities of jobs in sport, and one of the realities of jobs in sport that someone told me when I was working in intramurals at the University of Maryland and at the University of Arkansas is that part of the hard part about working in sports is that you have to work while everybody else plays. So at nights and on Saturdays when everybody is at the game, you're the one who's working the game. So that's kind of a hard thing sometimes. You have to give up your Saturdays and your nights sometimes to provide the sport opportunity that everyone else is either playing in or participating in or watching. So that's one of the harder realities, among others, that you saw in this particular chapter. So we also looked at, and this is pretty important, we looked at a few places where you can browse job postings in sport. So there were quite a few websites, and a lot of the websites are differentiated based on which area of sport we're looking at. So there are a few websites for college sport, a few websites for intramurals, a few websites for youth sport, a few for parks and recreation sport, a few for kind of the business side of sport. So we looked, there were probably 10 or 20 websites in your lesson this week. So just always kind of fun to favorite those and browse and see what job postings that you see from time to time. Some comments on assignments I have graded. I'm preparing this video during week 4, so that means that I have not graded what you've turned in week 4 yet because it's not due yet. So I have graded, at this point I have graded your first quiz. And the quizzes are heavily based on material in the textbook. That's how I know that you're using it to follow along with the material and to keep up with the material. So they're heavily based in your textbooks, and if I didn't see that your answers were based on information that was presented there, then I took some points. So this week I will be grading your weekly reaction number 2 that you did last week. And I look forward to seeing what you had to say about some different careers in sport. So what we're looking at this week, we're starting to look at a few of the major management areas in sport. So this week that is marketing. Marketing is a pretty major component of marketing. And we're going to just look at a few basics of marketing in general. So we're going to look at the concept of the marketing mix. That's an important concept and vocabulary word that we're going to see is the marketing mix. And that includes the 4 P's of marketing. And that's product, price, place, and promotion. So you'll be asked a few questions to clarify and differentiate what those mean specific to sport. We're also going to look at a few current issues in marketing. So sport is a reflection of our society, and it's always changing, and a lot of the challenges that we see in society in general kind of come out in sport. So we're going to look at a few of those throughout this class, and this week we're going to look at a few issues particular to sport. And one of those is the importance of a particular team's or athlete's image as it relates to marketing in sport. So as we approach NFL season, we almost always see issues related to a player's image and how a marketing department for a team has to manage that and try to either minimize things related to a bad image or maximize some stories that could give the team a good image. So we'll see some examples of each. So be looking for those as we have issues that go on throughout this NFL season. Some comments on upcoming assignments. What we have due this week, we have our second quiz. And again, as I said before, with our first quiz, it's heavily based in the textbook. So you will need your textbook to take that quiz. And then our second assignment that's due this week is the sports reporter assignment. And you are supposed to interview somebody in a sport-related job that you find interesting and explain why you find it interesting. And I gave you some suggestions for interview questions in your assignment, but I also want you to go ahead and think of some questions. I'd love to see your own questions based on what piqued your interest with that particular person or job, or as you went through the interview and heard something that made you wanted to ask a follow-up question or something like that. So I look forward to seeing those assignments from you and seeing who you interviewed and why you found that interesting. Have a great week, and I look forward to seeing your stuff from this week. I'll talk to you soon.